Okay, so some of you have got to this stage, you got very close. You know, some of you are not using this rig, some are. So I just explain the difference between this rig, because obviously I think some of you discovered using the other rig that you're stuck with like a 180 rotation every time you bounce. So this rig is doing a 180. So if you look at the curves, the 180 though is really morphing the ball. So it's this control here, this long one is doing about 180 degrees every time it goes over. So 90, 90, 90, 90, 90, all the way along 180. Now the point is that's just, we can see that visually because we've got the control turned on. Once it's turned off, we won't be able to see it at all. So that's going on behind the scenes. So the last trick then is I can actually use this rotation control. And this one allows me to spin the ball as much as I want, right? Where the other rig, you're stuck with that 180. So what I'm going to do is to keyframe this at the beginning, and I'm just going to roughly guess how much kind of rotation I want. Now I don't want it to be perfect, I don't want it to look like that 180, so maybe it goes about 180 every bounce, but I'm just going to spin it along. Right, so I can go all the way along to my last bounce, see if I can get it on that last one, which is there, and I could do something like spin the ball around a few times. That's gone around a few times. Yeah. Let's take a look at it now. Now, I've just guessed, I have no idea whether that's right or not. It's just a judgment call. So now if I look at my rotation, which was rotate X, there we go. This is the rotation I've got. And I just wanted to not have any slow in, slow out, so it does this. But at the very end, I'll probably have it go a little bit longer. So it goes past that last bounce, so it just rolls on slightly. But we'll see what we got, because at the moment, we've got this exactly on the last bounce. So let's turn off everything, so I can just see this. You see the ball actually looks like it's bouncing now, right? I just need to have it bounce a little bit longer to make sense of that last little piece. All right? But it still doesn't look natural for one reason. Does anyone want to guess what the reason is why it doesn't look natural? It literally is because no ball can be that side on, that perfect, that whole time. Right? So that ball would never start out this perfect. It would be spun in some other direction. You don't get a football and get it right exactly. You don't get a Pokemon ball and don't get it perfect. And then you can never keep it that perfect, right? So you've got to mess it up a little bit. So there's a very simple thing we'll do at the very end, right? So we just need to fix that last bounce. So if I just grab my rotation, go and look in the graph editor, you can see at the moment this is finishing exactly when everything else finishes. So what I want to do is have this go on a few more keyframes. You see it's got this little ski at the end here. So that's where it really finishes. So we'll key it again. This is the extra bit. So I want this to sort of move on slightly. I'm just going to lift this one up. And now this becomes the last bit of my rotation. So just move it down just slightly. So this now is a little bit of the roll at the end. Right, so it rolls on a little bit. So let's take a look. You can see it just moves a little bit with it. Right, so we'll turn off those again. Yeah, so now it's rotating. So take off the handle. Now we can really see what's going on. It feels natural. So last thing, we'll bring back the controls. If you remember, if I set this little control at the end here and I bring back my last two controls, we have the start control, we have this one. Got this little line here. Watch what happens when I do this. It spins the ball around. This ball doesn't need to be animated. This is just a start position to create something chaotic. That means now, if I can spin it around, I can say, well, the ball starts like this. Now, when I go back, it's not in that organized position that it was before. Now, if I turn this off, it's going to look a lot better because it's not actually looking so even and so unrealistic anymore. Still got a little bit of a hop in there, but you can see it's actually looking a little bit more like it's sort of chaotic. So the last thing is I want to go over is how to play blast something out, right? Now this is really important because There's different ways to play blast things. I've given you a video to watch, so I'm just going to show you 2 of them, because they're the 2 starting ones. But also, just the reason to play blast something, right? Now, it's a bit of a cheesy name, play blasting, but what it really means is show me real time, and then save real time out, right? So right now, in Maya, you're only seeing what Maya can achieve. Now, if I had 3 characters in here, which are really dense and they're really heavy, like in the memory, Maya's going to struggle to show you real time, right? It's just going to do what your processor can do. So play blasting is allowing you to see the reality of your animation. It's going to save out a series of images, give it back to you as like a little flip book, and then show you the reality of your time, right? So this is number 1 for play blasting. Without doing anything in the viewport, I'm just going to frame it. So let's go here, make sure I get all my animation in. Something like that. Right, so now I'm going to right click on the timeline. It says play blast at the bottom and bring up the options. We get this little window here. And this window allows you to save out not a render, not anything fancy, just your graphics card and what you're seeing. Now by default it's set to actually save out a movie. I'll come back to that in a moment. But really the best use of this is to go to Format, Image, Encoding, and then Maya. And these are kind of the old settings for Maya, if you want to capture that. It's in the video on Moodle as well. And that's all I need to do. And you see it says scale 50%. It's going to be 50% of the viewport in height and width, so we're going to get 1/4. Right, so I just hit play blast, so it goes through, and it opens up a little program called F-check. And F-check is the reality of my time. You see at the top here, it's trying to play exactly 24 frames per second, as close as it can, give me real-time animation feedback. In Maya, who knows? You might get slower, you might get faster. So you've got to keep play blasting as you animate, keep checking. Now, in a modern sense, if I'm kind of animating a bouncing ball, it's not going to be too difficult to see that perhaps the viewport is quite close to what I'm getting in the play blast. If I go back 20 years, that bouncing ball would never look like what it was meant to look like in the viewport. Computers couldn't do that back then, really. They didn't look that good, so you would play blast every 2 seconds to just figure out what it is you were actually doing, right? If you notice, I can actually scrub in here as well. I can press spacebar to start it, spacebar to stop it. That means I can be diagnostic and analyze what's wrong with my animations as well. That's super important, particularly when you get into like performance, you don't know what's happening. You play blast something out, and then you can sort of be diagnostic and so on. You can also open in here, you can save an image, you can save an animation out, as in you can save an image sequence, but you can actually open an image sequence as well. So if you do actually save something out, you render it, you want to check it, you can load it into F-check. Okay, so that's not the only option. There's another option, which is save out as a movie file, and then there's a third option, which we'll cover next week, which is about sending something out, which is a more improved version of your graphics card. But for now, just to save out a movie file, under this little cog icon, this brings up your render settings, which is really about sort of, output, right? So output. The only thing you need to know in here is image size, HD 1080. You want it to be a HD size. So you hit close. I've got this set up. It's on this little pull-down menu, got all kinds of different sizes. HD 1080 is just going to be TV size, that screen. Hit close. Don't need to know anything else about that. Up here, you've got this little kind of dot, right? And this little one next to it, so the 2 dots. This just helps you frame everything, to be HD. So your viewport is going to be whatever size I actually do. So you see what happens here. I can make it this size or this size. This is the true size of your output. So once you're done, if you just turn that off again, right, you can actually lock the camera here as well. Lock it in place. You turn it off, and now you're ready to go for the next part. So right-click, play blast, edit, reset settings, and now we're on to saving out an AVI file. I don't really want any encoding. I want it to be 100% quality. I want it to be 100% scale. And I want display size to be from render settings, which is this. So HD 1080, this is me telling it to go to here. So now I can play blast out by saving a file. So we'll call this. I can put it on the desktop. Just call it ball. And now I can just hit play blast. And now it's making a movie file for me. And it's just going to be a very basic file. file. You can see it's opening it up here in the VLC player. You see now I've saved it out as a something you can put onto your blog or your website, you know, to prove you've done something which is a movie file. Okay? So that's how you can evidence your work, is to play blasting. We don't need to render anything yet, just play blasting is fine. All right? I'll show you next week how to do an improved quality version of that. So lastly then, just to the task, let me just open up this scene. Okay, so in this file, when you open it up, there's some obstacles. So what I'd like you to do is to give an obstacle course a go, right? So once you've done the bouncing ball, there's an obstacle course. I've also included some things on Google. Let me just find Google here. Oh, I've got to log in again. So you can see here's Moodle. So this is basically what we're going to be doing, this obstacle course. Now if I play this video, you can see this. Right. That's just somebody who's made one. Now this is a very cartoony one. Right. Yours doesn't have to, like, you know, be that elaborate. It can be as basic as you want it to be. But you can see this person has also planned it here by sort of drawing the arcs on. Okay, so you sort of plan the arcs and then you try to execute the bouncing ball on an obstacle course. Okay, so bring up the file again. I've just given you some pieces in here to use if you want to. They're just some models I've given you. You can make your own. I don't mind. Right? You can have fun and try to do it in the side view. Here, so you can actually sort of organise it in the side view. Don't try to do it in 3D. You'll probably have a bit of a nightmare trying to make everything work in 3D, all the physics and the trajectory and everything. Don't do that. Do it in the side view. And you can, if you want to, set up a little area for yourself. Like, for example, if I've got this on HD 1080, we can do the same thing we just did with the Play Blast, and this becomes my arena when you Play Blast out, right? So you don't need to do anything else. You can actually lock the camera if you want to. And you can also bookmark the camera. Edit bookmarks, new bookmark, close. If you move it somewhere, bookmark, back again. So it's a way to store your camera position. There's nothing worse than animating or having a camera animation and you've accidentally spun the camera around and then you can't get back. So irritating. There is a shortcut for that, which is the square brackets on the keyboard. They step the camera movement. But in your case, you just need to sort of, you know, position this. So have fun. You can animate these. I've tried to give you the sort of the correct pivot for things. So you can actually animate stuff. These ones are probably more flat. The ones that you move. You can also obviously scale these up and do other things to them. Or as I say, just create some primitives of your own using the polygon primitives here. Right. So whatever you feel is appropriate. And you notice I put 3 balls in here as well. You're welcome to use any one of those that you feel comfortable with. Right. So you don't need to use my one. Any one you feel comfortable with, use that one. One final note, I'm going to re-upload the scenes in a little bit because there was something wrong with the 2018 version. All right, so I want to make sure that's good for you. So I'm going to do that during the lunch break. So just wait before you download anything. So I'll make sure I actually, you know, fix that rig for you. Okay, I don't need to work with a broken rig. All right. The 2022 version is all good. Okay, if you want to download that one, you can. All right.
2022.
22 for mine. Yeah, that one's all fine. Okay, you can download that one. This is the 2018 one. I came in this morning. There's a few things wrong with it. I thought I fixed it, but there's one thing I didn't do, so I'll just go and do it for you. Okay. Okay, so we reached 1 o'clock. That is the first pass over. You've got. I know I'm going a mile a minute, but we've got loads to do in the next 10 weeks. So we need to keep jumping task. Every week there's going to be a new thing. Next week is going to be on Thursday posing characters. That's the recorded version. And then the class on Friday is going to be making a ball and tail pop around the screen. And now you've got a tail to deal with. Okay? All right? Does anybody have any questions before we finish up? No? Okay, you're welcome to hang behind and ask anything if you want to. If you want to, ask anything at the end, feel free. Okay?